I just recently bought a course called, you might know it, it's called Consulting Accelerator from Sam Ovens. You probably know who Sam Ovens is. And basically, in this video, what I'm going to be discussing briefly is why you keep fucking up. It's so simple, and this is the reason probably why 90% of people don't seem to be breaking out, or are most people aren't able to break out of their current plateau. And when I mean break out of their current plateau, I mean everything is progress. A sale is a progress. A sale is a straight line if you think about it, like what Jordan Belfort said. There's the open and there's the close. And in order for you to reach your destination and your goal, there's where you are now and then there's where you want to be, right? And the only thing that's stopping you is that middle ground, right? So how can you make that a superfluous straight line in order to get to your goal quicker? And basically what Sam talks about, and which I'm going to talk about too, I'm going to share my screen on the Loom, is just like a bench press progression. You plateau, and then you go back to a mediocre state, and then you go to your peak, and then you go to a mediocre state, and then it's back and forth, back and forth. So if you watch this video, I'm going to show you why about 90% of people fail and how you're going to be able to avoid this. Hey guys, so what I wanted to talk about is the uniform of success, right? So it's pretty difficult to take an overarching view and be like, okay, this is the direction of how to get from A to B, right? And really just truly just knowing, you're here and you're just like, okay, I know exactly how to get linearly from here to here. No one ever has done that, right? But what I'm going to do in this video is make it pretty straightforward for you, right? So I'm going to tell you guys a story first. So when I first started working out, I couldn't bench a plate. I remember I was 15 years old, or even I think I was 15. And me and my buddies just went to the gym to play basketball. And after they were messing around on the bench press and they loaded up a plate, just went on there. They all hopped on there. One guy was able to do it, and then the two other guys weren't. And then they're like, Ash, they looked over at me. They did one of these. And so I was like, okay, why not? Let's go. Let's try it. I get on and I get crushed by it. I remember like my legs are like squirming like I'm a little centipede, whatever, right? So that happens. I'm not able to bench. And then I start getting into the gym more. I start eating more. And then I notice that my progression in the gym is modeled by something that looks like this, right? So you guys may be looking at me like I'm an alien. Oh, is this guy really doing math? Yes, I'm going to do math. You're limiting yourself to the belief that you can't do math. It's very simple, right? And this is how things work, right? People think that math and physics only apply to math and physics world and the math and physics world. No, that applies to everything, right? That applies to psychology, that applies to biology, that applies to the laws of success, the laws of failure. Natural law is always going to apply to always and everything. So make sure you keep that in the back of your mind. But this is basically what happens. So I would start here at 0, right? So this is like, I guess, starting the gym. And I'd make a ton of success. I'd do good. I'd get to a point where I was benching a, let's say like let's say, I was going from 135, 185 for maybe like 2 reps. And then I would kind of stop eating, maybe stop doing my routine, and then dip down a bit. And I would maybe just like top out at that same weight. I wouldn't really dip much below it, but I would kind of plateau. Let's just represent this as a plateau. And then I would dip down a bit and I'd be like, fuck, what am I doing? Oh my God. And then I would go on kind of a rage, like a little bit of a tangent of success per se. And I would go from this low point to this high point within, maybe a month, 2 months maybe. And I would go from like, let's say 185 to 225, right? And then I'd be like, yeah, 225, awesome. And then I would kind of just chill. I wouldn't I wouldn't lose much progress. It wouldn't be like coming all the way back to the start, back to 185, but I would kind of just chill at 225 and I wouldn't really change much. And then I would dip back down, plateau, and then I'd be like, okay, shit, I gotta get out of this plateau. And then I would kind of come back up on the rise, 275. Dude, I was stuck at 275. If I could properly represent this, I could draw. So what is that? 8, like y equals like that, 225 fucking forever, right? So this is kind of my progress in the gym. And you're probably wondering, okay, Ashton, why does this apply to anything in terms of success, in terms of business? Well, I'm going to show you right here. So in business, this is kind of how people think that, or how people want to progress, right? You have this point here where, let's say, you start your business, right? This is the starting point, right? And this is the point where you want to go, right up here. And this represents time, and this represents the amount of money you're making, let's say, or how you rank success, whatever, right? People think that, okay, I'm going to go from 0 to this point, and I'm just going to have this straight line and do good. But it's not how it works at all, right? A lot of the times, this is how most people kind of work. And if I could, I don't know exactly how to model this, but if this was more accurate, it would be a kind of a downward representation back to the mean here. And you can see this is still steadily growing, but it's not exponential and you're wasting time and you're plateauing. This is how most people do things. Or they go from 0, they make a good amount of progress, and they just do a full dive back to 1, back to this starting point in terms of their success, right? So this is kind of what I realized with the gym, with this graph right here, and I was like, okay, how do I just turn this just into this, right? How do I just streamline things so then I can see my where I am right now and my goal, and just get on the vehicle to that destination ASAP, right? And this is kind of where what I discovered actually in the course that I was taking that I explained to you in the start of the video. So my mentor, Sam Ovens, basically explains this concept of standards. And everyone is like, yeah, everyone knows the quote of don't have low standards. That's just kind of like dating, whatever. Don't have low standards. Okay, what does that mean? All right. What is a standard? Let's define a standard. Let's just do it right here. So if you really look at the standard of the definition of a standard, it's the more of like what you define as like your accepted value of normal, right? So if you look at like somebody who's really jacked, for example, and they're benching like 4 plates, in their perspective, they're like, okay, that's 4 plates, it's not that much. Or you see somebody who's ultra wealthy and they drop a few grand on dinner, okay, that's not that much. So accept it as the normal or average from their point of view, right? Within their paradigm, right? And this is the thing, everybody has a different paradigm, right? So then I was thinking, I just got my brain going. I was learning these concepts with Sam, and then I was understanding them more and how they kind of fit into my life. So this is the one thing that I realized. Let's see, man. So this is the sine graph, right? I'm not going to model it with time, with the linear anymore. I'm just going to do it with this here. So this is what I realized. I had my up and I had my down, and I had my up and I had my down, right? And I realized, okay, what does this down represent and what does this up represent? This up represents me being happy, me being successful, me being on top of the world. Yes, I benched 225, or yes, I made a lot of money. This can apply to any aspect of your life, right? And then what happens? You reach this point and then you feel happy. You get rushed with several pleasure neurotransmitter chemicals, dopamine, serotonin. You feel awesome. And you should, right? Biologically, that's just in us, right? You win the war, you feel good. If you didn't feel good after you won the war, you wouldn't be motivated as a man to fight again, right? So it's good that you feel that, right? But what happens is you feel that, and then you're like, Awesome. Let's relax, right? And then that's when you go back into it. So how can I just keep, the question is, how do I just keep, I accept it, sure, but just keep going up? Because look at how much more ahead I would be if I just kept going up. And this is when you see a lot of these young kids, really young kids, make a lot of money online and beat these people who've gone to school for several years, or these old guys who are, have been in the game forever. And it's simply this. It's just the law of compounding effect, right? I know I'm probably regurgitating a lot of information that I've learned from this course, but the law of cause and effect is the eighth wonder of the world, right? Or the law of compounding effect is the eighth wonder of the world. So then I realized, okay, so if this is me being happy, me being, yes, I've reached my goal, what's this? Okay, this is my standard. So this is what I've noticed. This value right here is my standard, right? And this standard right here will not change. It can change, but will not change. And what I realized is some people's are lower, some people's are higher. Why is that guy able to bench 4 plates, 415, 450, and think that it's a decent amount of it's okay, right? That's what he thinks. Or that guy drop a few thousand on dinner and think, okay, that's not a lot of money, right? It's all because of this right here. This is important, yes, right? But this is important, more important. And I'm going to explain to you here why. All right. So what I realized is, okay, so if this value, let's say, was here, where this mouse is right here, if you can see my mouse, would I even differ in terms of my progress? Barely, right? Barely. I would have kind of just kept going in more of a linear fashion, right? Now let's say this value was down here, right? Really down in the trenches, below where even I started, really self-destructive. Well, what would that make me, right? So you can see how people, based on their own paradigms, have different levels of their standards, right? And this is, sure, dating advice. Everyone says for you to have high standards, but this is a way of looking at it that kind of relates physics into it and the law of numbers and how natural law kind of integrates with this. So then I realized, okay, this number, yes, it's in our brains, yes, or not number, this level per se, this area, it's in our brains, yes. Okay, how do we take this and just bring it up here? How do we do that? And it's a lot easier said than done. You're just like, okay, just have higher standards. But no, what do we do? Right? And that's the question. So, and I'm not going to answer it, right? I'm really not going to answer it. But I want you guys to think about, because this applies to every facet of life, right? So just to leave you guys off with kind of a quote, it's not our highest selves, which we can imagine. So it's not this value, right? We are the lowest versions of ourselves that we can accept. We are the lowest versions of ourselves that we can accept. We have to understand that we will do nothing to achieve our dreams, but we will fight like hell to not break this, right? So we will not want to go below this number. Going below this is a lot more painful than the contrast of the pleasure you receive from this, right? So as humans, we will do more to not lose something than we will to gain something, right? We will run from pain instead of run towards pleasure, right? It's the same with, just to leave you guys with a cool little science experiment. They did this study where they put a mouse and they attached a spring to its tail and they put cheese in front of it. The mouse saw the cheese and it ran towards the cheese. It pulled a little bit. And then they put a cat behind the mouse and the cheese was still there. And then the mice pulled like 3-4 times harder, right? So pain, the cat, or pleasure, the cheese, right? Pain is a greater driver. So if you want to achieve your dreams and goals, you must turn them into irrefutable standards, right? So what does that mean? That means Okay, I got to bring this up here so that this is how I'm moving, right? I'm just on a straight paradigm. I'm on a straight line where it's, okay, my goal is achieved. This is my goal right here, 3, 3. Awesome. Next. 4, 4. Awesome. I have my eyes set on 7, 8, 9, done. So it's about being relentless and making sure that this value, this standard value, this, what is my standard? Taking that and just being like, that is where I focus. I'll fall for that. My brain psychologically is wired to not go below that. So how do I bring that up so that if I hit that, then it's my goal. It's like shoot for the stars, or shoot for the moon and land among the stars, right? It's the same thing. So yes, you want to make $300 million a year, but if your standard is to make 400K a year, you're gonna make 400K a year, right? So make sure that standard is not too far of a limit off from your desire, and then watch yourself just reach that with absolute ease because you're gonna fight like hell to not breach it.